comedy festival that's very political, and a democracy festival that's very funny. So we're going to hear from Peter about how you celebrate democracy. Peter's formed and has a growing network around the world of democracy festivals, and if you were involved in a democracy festival, he'd like to hear from you. Here's Peter O'Neill. So we're going to have two other stories of democracy. First is our friend Sam Chang, who works on the balanced ballot or negative vote. He's from Taipei, Taiwan, but also is working with the same ballot idea in multiple countries. Sam.
Thank you, Joe. I have attended this forum since 2018, and this is the first time I'm able to talk to the general audience all at the same time instead of one-on-one. So thank you, Joe, for this opportunity. What I propose is a very simple reform idea, that we should have the choice to vote no against a politician that we don't like. And this is simply called a negative vote. Nowadays, when you have an election, you go to the polls to elect somebody you like. But what if you don't like any of the candidates? What do? Some of you say, well, I'm not going to vote anymore. And unfortunately, that's happening around the world. But if you have the choice to vote no, some of these people who don't vote today will come to vote. And because there's only one vote, that's my proposal, you still have only one vote. If you only have one vote and you vote for someone that you don't like, you're going to vote against the extremist. So this additional participation will come from the people in the middle when there's only one vote. When there's only one vote, if you're a loyal partisan voter, you are going to vote yes for the candidate that you support, by definition, if you're loyal. So the people who are likely to vote no are what I call the independent, more independent-minded voters, the middle voters. And because you only have one vote, for the middle voter, you're going to vote against the extremist. So voter participation will increase, and the worst politician will get the most negative votes. In any sort of tight race, that can change the outcome of an election. So what's going to happen in the future in all tight races? All the candidates must move toward the center. How do you attract the yes vote from the people in the center rather than the no votes? Well, you have to bring beef to the table. You cannot continue to do the negative campaign that is so apparent today in all elections, because people in the middle do not like negative campaign. So I believe also negative campaign will be reduced because of this reform. Don't we all need that in every country? So I see this as a vaccine against extremism, right? Because of the additional participation of the middle voters will vote against the extremists, and they will have to care about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next story is from Alejandro Meguian, who works in many different places. You might describe yourself briefly. But this is a story from, and I hope I'm saying this right, Bio Bio in Chile. Yes.
No siguiendo las órdenes de no decir gracias y ya empecé mal. Está bien. Sí, decía que empecé mal no siguiendo tus indicaciones de no decir gracias, pero bueno. Buenos días a todas, a todos y a todes. Gracias por este espacio para poder compartir algunos avances de mi trabajo de tesis doctoral. Primero quisiera situarme y decir, yo no soy chileno, yo soy mexicano.
I will introduce a photograph of some progress that I've seen in my fieldwork. And secondly, is to be a Democrat, a full democratic. I do believe in democracy. And this is the only way to improve life. So it is substantially important. This is something that exists. Can we show the next one? I want to show you slides and photographs that was taken in October the 20th last year in Chile. It is going through an important transformation process with the new constitution. In the photograph that we cannot see, there is a wall painted. Democracy was never an option. Who wrote this? As Octavio Paz said in The Labyrinth of Solitude, and as Pablo González Casanova, José Emilio Pacheco, when you see the world, and if we are very academicians, it will be someone who belongs to social groups. And the feminist philosopher, she always said, social groups with exclusion processes and domination. This is an abstract. These are results of the youth survey in Chile in 2022. Here we can see the profile of those people who actually participate in processes with groups, with movements that defend social causes. And we see that we're speaking about women mainly who are satisfied with the economic situation, with professional level of study complete, with less sentiment of age discrimination, those who believe their income is enough to pay for their needs. This is the profile of young people participating. And then we have a summary in some interviews that I've done with young people. Those are people in privileged environments in leadership positions. They're afraid of participating because of the migration situation in considering other critical aspects. And last but not least, I would like to thank you all for this space and remember what Gonzalo Casanova said. Nos disculpamos en la cabina de interpretación. We apologize in the translation booth, but this we were given the direction not to translate in this session. We deeply apologize. Thank you. Les damos la bienvenida a la plenaria, donde vamos a entrar a la carne, lo importante del foro, cómo funciona la democracia.
Two-day work in reality. I will call the panelists now up. We have not so much time, so first I want to welcome Victor Alarcón Holguín. Welcome. He's one of the leading scholars here in Mexico on direct and participatory democracy. He's a professor at the Universidad Autónoma Metropolitano, UAM. Welcome. Just take a seat wherever you find one. Secondly, I want to welcome Janina Welp. Welcome. Janina is one of the great scholars of direct democracy for Latin America and the world. She's from Argentina and works at the Albert Hirschman Center on Democracy, the Graduate Institute in Switzerland. And thirdly, I welcome Dongxi Qi from Taiwan. Qi, he's the vice president of the Taiwan think tank, and I must also say one of the brains behind the Taiwan democracy train we had 3 years ago. Thank you very much. We will then have Margarita Sierra on remote. She's the Secretary of Citizen Participation at the state of Jalisco. Do you hear us and see us? Yes. I hope that the sound will work on these remotes soon. And fourthly, Riccardo Fraccaro from Italy. Welcome. Riccardo is one of the greatest promoters of direct democracy ever, worldwide, nationwide, Minister for Direct Democracy in a national government. Welcome. Then I welcome Marie Jünemann from Germany. She is one of the leading activists of Mehr Demokratie, More Democracy in Germany. You can say possibly the most powerful NGO for direct democracy in a country. Welcome. And last but not least, I want to welcome John Matsusaka from Los Angeles. Here he's coming. John is also one of the leading scholars of direct democracy. He's president of the Initiative and Referendum Institute of the United States at the University of Southern California. All welcome. Yes, we have already in these first days got a lot of impressions about how, you can say, direct democracy is a challenge to democracy as such, but also how democracy as such is challenged by non-democratic practices in many countries. And we learned so much already here in Mexico. I was this morning in the Congreso de Diputados and discussed with the president, with the vice president, about ongoing challenges here in Mexico. And we will continue this conversation, but now in a global perspective, because these are 7 leading speakers from 6 countries and 4 continents. And as we are the Global Forum, we can really learn a lot from each another. We will have 2 introduction rounds, or 2, you can say, rounds where the speakers here are invited to answer to 2 fundamental questions. And you will have 3 minutes each, and when there is 1 minute left, Anne will hold up her sign there with 1 minute. And then we will have a little interaction here on the stage before we also hopefully get some time for questions and answers and inputs from all of you. So let's start. What does direct democracy mean to you and your home country? And I start with Victor.
Thank you very much for this kind invitation to participate in this seminar. It's very nice and very amazing having you all in this country. And okay, sorry. No, thank you very much for having you all here. In this case, for me, it's my English is a little bit rusty, but so I will switch into Spanish. But in any case, I will try to to express myself in English when it's possible. Bueno, lo primero que yo quisiera pensar que qué significa la democracia directa y cómo yo la vería en la práctica de mi país, lo primero que yo diría que la democracia directa pues es un gran proceso de asimilación de capacidades y de interacciones en los cuales la ciudadanía, la población, tiene o debe tener la posibilidad de ejercer sus derechos de manera plena, hombres, mujeres, diversidades, y desde ahí entonces poder construir consensos de muy amplio orden en todos los ámbitos de la vida cotidiana. Yo soy muy ferviente defensor de la devolución, ¿no?, de la democracia de devolución, ¿no?, de devolution democracy, en donde estamos en la idea de recuperar espacios, mecanismos en donde precisamente la democracia participativa tiene que ver entonces con una forma muy particular de ejercer estas capacidades y estos derechos. En México recientemente, en los últimos años, hemos venido introduciendo a nivel nacional mecanismos como el recall, la consulta popular, tenemos también la iniciativa popular legislativa, que esa es una estructura, una figura que yo un poquito preparé algunos elementos con los cuales podría yo ilustrar en una segunda participación, si fuera así posible, cómo trabaja en México. Y en particular me parece que estas experiencias son apenas significativas en la medida en que la participación sigue siendo baja, la dificultad para poderlo diferenciar de los mecanismos tradicionales absorbidos por los partidos políticos sigue siendo entonces un elemento.
This is why this is still an element that it has a very difficult possibility to make immediate investments of economic resources. And of course, as well, we have the familiarization in terms of discussions like in this type of fora, but in bigger places, because we want the population to be fully aware of how all these instruments operate. In other words, we are coming from a process that started 10 years ago. It was in 2012 when all these instruments were introduced, and it was only a year ago when we had the mandate revocation exercise in order to assess the actions by the president and the People's Consult in order to assess the permanence and to do investigation and research and investigation about the performance of the former presidents of Mexico. So we have these federal experiences, and these are the experiences we are trying to assess. And in other federal entities, we have had 30 years of activities with participative budget. We have had plebiscite and People's Consult, amongst other instruments. So I believe this is what I can say. It's been a slow process of assimilation, and I believe we are all very enthusiastic about the development of this direct democracy. Muchísimas gracias. Y ¿cómo a usted le tocó esta?
So let's go to Janina.
¿Se escucha? Sí. Vale, es un gusto estar una vez más en este fórum y por supuesto también
In this
en
forum,
Ciudad-
and to be in Mexico City. I will directly go to the subject matter. I have three reference countries in my home country, and I believe that we speak about direct democracy. These are three very good examples. So only a few seconds to explain what is direct democracy in practice in each one of these countries. Argentina, at the national level, something out of the agenda. Surprisingly, outside of the agenda of the main political parties and outside of the agenda of the social movements. But at the subnational level, as we've seen in Mexico, proliferation of these mechanisms without any impact at the national level. My idea, they are not in the agenda because political parties prefer to control the exercise of politics, and social movements do not see as a demand. At the subnational level, the description would be different. Spain, In Spain, the first word I have to describe the case is that this is a taboo, direct democracy mechanisms, but they are not a taboo because people speak about them. But there are two dimensions why this is a pretty controversial topic. One, the need for a constitutional reform to introduce initiatives or legislative bills or mandatory referendums, and it could give rise to finish with monarchy. It is a conflict, and then at the second level, the territorial conflict, and we speak about referendum, and we immediately think in terms of self-determination conflicts. This is why in Spain, despite of the regulation at the level of the autonomous communities, it is not working either. And last but not least, Switzerland, a country. And as the majority of you know, direct democracy mechanisms are part of the political system. I will not go deeper into this because I have only a few seconds left. I will now tell you what I believe is a direct democracy mechanism, what it should be. The Switzerland model cannot be exported, but it should be an inspiration. And there are some mechanisms like the veto referendum, the citizens' initiatives, and the ratification of the constitutional reforms or high-impact decisions. This is core for the political system, and it is also, they are core, fundamental, because it allows to open the agenda. It doesn't mean we have a high approval rate, but it is possible to start a conversation with the initiatives and to open the negotiation process before passing the laws and to adjust the preferences through the three mechanisms. And with the different representatives and with those who are being represented. Muchas gracias, muchas gracias. Ya empezamos en México, Argentina, España y Suiza. Y ahora vámonos con Taiwán.
Thanks, Bruno. It's a really good question for Taiwan and for myself. And for Taiwan, Taiwan has party alternation for many times, and we can say direct democracy is the fruit of deepening democracy in Taiwan. 20 years ago, just 20 years ago, Taiwan passed the referendum law in 2003, allowing people in Taiwan to decide national affairs through the referendums, and now even become a very important process for amending the constitution. For our Taiwanese, direct democracy is an important achievement that Taiwan can share, exchange and share our experience with other democratic countries. As Bruno mentioned, in 2019, a Global Forum on Modern Direct Democracy was held in Taiwan. Our Taiwan think tank held an event called Taiwan Democracy Train. I think some of you took this train at that time. And we got many friends from all over the world, and Taiwanese college students to took the train to many cities in Taiwan and visit the democratic landscape while sharing their democratic experience in their hometown. And it's very, very important for us. But in fact, the promotion of direct democracy in Taiwan at the very beginning was trying to resolve Taiwan's sovereign issue through national self-determination. However, Taiwan's referendum law passed in 2003 deleted relevant provisions that affect the status quo of sovereign, such as changing territories through referendums to avoid excessive conflict. In the past 20 years, we have implemented 20 times national referendums, plus a referendum vote on constitutional amendments. And the issue of the referendum are no longer just political issues, but more related to people's livelihood, something just like environmental protections. And this makes more and more Taiwanese care about public affairs, and more people participate in referendums. Just 3 years ago, our Taiwan think tank conducted a public opinion survey. According to the survey, more than half of Taiwanese people believe that Taiwan's elections were fair and just without fraud. But it's very important. More than 40% of Taiwanese did not believe in elections. And in addition, almost half of the Taiwanese
people believe that through elections, the government will value their rights and opinions. But 43% of the people believe that their rights and opinions are not taken seriously by the government. And it is worth noting that more than 80% of Taiwanese people believe that direct democracy can be implemented through referendums to supplement the shortcomings of representative democracy. So therefore, a direct democracy has become a very important part of Taiwan's democracy. It makes Taiwan a better country and allows Taiwan to have the ability to block the sharp power from mainland China. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is the first global forum which we not only have a forum, participation on the spot or remotely through others, but also that there is a parallel global forum just now going on in Jalisco, in Guadalajara. And from there, I welcome the Secretary of Participation from the government of Jalisco, Margarita. Welcome.
Gracias, Bruno. Yo hablaré de la democracia desde mi estado.
State. Direct democracy. It is the collaboration among all public officers and citizens. And the aim is to produce public policies for every area of administration. It is a political organization system that will allow citizens to have a greater and a more direct capacity to have an influence in the public decision-making process. Direct democracy, open spaces so that citizens can play a protagonic, active role and positive role within politics, both at the community level as well as a regional and national level. One of the challenges we have is to create the instruments that will favor active participation of citizens, such as work tables, dialogues, assemblies, and consult processes that will promote direct participation of our citizens. The government of Jalisco created the first planning office and citizens participation office, and this is the office that I am in charge of leading. This is the first national office in order that we can make sure there are democratic exercises and citizens co-creation. And speaking about participative budget, we coordinate the measurement of the state plan for development. We also help to design the municipal development plans, and we determine what is the design and what is going to be the application of the measure and the evaluation of public policies in the state. And in speaking about citizens' participation and the culture for peace, our responsibility is to design, implement, supervise, and assess citizen participation programs, governance, and culture of peace at the state level to promote the culture of peace in the different municipalities of the state, to look for alternative resolution of conflicts. We should also train governors, officers, and citizens on governance and culture for peace and prevention, and to make sure we have citizens' participation and governance. And in order to promote democracy, we have a framework. We have a legal framework that is very robust. And this is the base of direct democracy in our state. The law of the citizens' participation system for the governance in the state of Jalisco, participative planning law, and the law of peace, plus all the regulations in the municipalities. This law recognizes the human right of all the inhabitants to directly participate in the public decisions. It establishes the base for governance, and it is one of the guiding principles that will guarantee the relationships between the state public administration, municipal, and the citizens for public interest decision-making processes by the governments. This system includes the first state board of citizens participation, the anti-corruption committee, the executive branch, the Congress of the state, the Electoral Institute, and citizens participation in Jalisco and 125 municipalities. We can witness that citizens participation in Jalisco is an ongoing process coming from direct democracy spaces, and we've been able to build co-responsibility and trust relationships so that we can come closer to public problems and we can understand how complex they are. Of listening to the voice of those who daily face this situation. It requires work and follow-up, and this is precisely what we are trying to do. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias, Margarita de Jalisco. Ahora le damos la palabra a Italia, a Roma. Estuvo en el foro hace 5 años y en esa época nuestro amigo era el director de Democracia Directa. Amigo de Italia, tienes que presionar el micrófono. La pregunta.
Direct democracy for me. Okay. Direct democracy for me has been the drive, the very drive to become an active citizen. When I was a young man, I felt politicians, parties, very far away from people, from the issues that I care. So I didn't vote anymore. The frustration was very strong. And when I discovered the existence of tools all around the world that permit people to decide directly, to take choices, to take decisions that influence their future directly, for me was a great discovery. And I decided to activate myself in that moment. And when I did that, I discovered that a lot of people had the same frustration that I had. And nowadays it's the same. People renounce to vote, for example. A lot of people. It is the only place of democracy that we have sometimes. In Italy, we have some days ago 2 main elections in two of the most important regions of Italy, Italian regions, and the participation was under 40%. It's incredible for me. And public opinion says that the problem is the answer of politicians, of parties that are wrong. I don't believe that. I believe that the question is not what politicians can do for people, but what people can do. And nowadays, people can only vote every 5 years, 4 years, and nothing more. We all are informed what happened in the world, and we can do nothing about that. Maybe we vote for someone that we don't know, really. It is not enough nowadays. I think the problem is that when citizens feel to not influence the choices of their community, at the end, people start not to recognize themselves with the community in which they live. And when it happens, the community, a state, a region, every group is weaker, is down to decay. And also, everybody, I think, that experience that if you are part of a group and you feel important for that group, you are happier, you feel good. If you're not important, you feel bad. So at the end, I think that the direct democracy is not only the way to improve democracy, but also to make our community stronger and all the individuals happier, for me.
Mille grazie. Thank you very much, Riccardo. Thank you. Discovering the possibility of direct democracy is also something many people have done in recent decades in Germany. And Marie, tell us.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, we already heard a lot, so I give you a moment to breathe. I was told not to say thank you, so I say I'm glad that I'm here. Mehr Demokratie, More Democracy is an organization that is not only a campaign organization, but more a scientific organization. So we are collecting the numbers, look at the cases, look at the instruments of direct democracy in Germany. And when you ask me what direct democracy means in my country, I would say at the federal level, In Germany, it has no meaning at all, because we have no direct democratic instruments on the federal level, on the nationwide level in Germany, except of some cases for obligatory referenda in the institution. And Mehr Demokratie has been promoting these nationwide citizens' initiatives and referenda for 35 years now, also in every state and on the local level. Nevertheless, we have a very vibrant direct democracy in some federal states and municipalities. And for example, I come from Berlin, and about 3 weeks after this conference will be finished, there is a referendum in Berlin whether the city should be climate neutral by 2030. And it was a citizens' initiative, it was bottom up. And this is currently a very controversial issue in Berlin. And this citizens' initiative, it fits into a new trend we observe in Germany. We observe that there's a rising of best practice cases of climate protection on the local level in Germany. We have over 5,400 referenda on the local level, and there is now a whole series of initiatives using direct democracy for climate protection. For example, to take coal-fired power plants off the grid, to make their own city more bike-friendly, or to recriminalize the local heating network. There are hundreds of examples, and these climate protection issues, they're really rising. Also at the state level, we actually see a rising number of initiatives which use direct democracy to further environmental protection. And this is no coincidence for me, because we have a huge environmental movement in Germany that kind of has achieved everything they could now in our representative democracy. They are facing a wall. They bring millions of people every year on the streets. They have the Green Party in the government, and they have achieved fundamental court decisions, but still Germany is failing its obligations from the Paris Treaty. So if you ask me what direct democracy means to me, and in Germany I say it has become an outlet for the climate movement on the local and the state level, where climate protection is pushed forward and the necessary decisions are made, but it's missing at the federal level, and it's missing at the European level. So to put the climate movement, which is huge, on an equal footing with politics. And I, for myself, think we need direct democracy and participation formats in order to create acceptance throughout our whole society for this major transformation we need to have to survive, that will affect all of us, our everyday lives that lie ahead of us. So time is running out, and it would actually be more important than ever to have direct democracy at the federal level in Germany. Thank you.
Vielen Dank. You see, Joe, I never say thank you. Now, we are almost around the world now, and close to Mexico City is another great city, Los Angeles, and from there, John, your take on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruno. Talking about direct democracy in the United States, talking about politics in the United States is always a little bit difficult because everybody has some knowledge of it. It's sort of in the environment, and a lot of what people have knowledge about is about Washington and the politicians there, and that's actually not the way to understand direct democracy in the United States, because there is no direct democracy in Washington or at the federal level. So let me give you a 2-minute summary of US history, and you can understand how direct democracy actually comes about. But 250 years ago, before there even was a country, there were lots of towns, there were colonies and so forth. A lot of those had direct democracy. There were town meetings and so forth. And then when the country was formed, the states had to decide whether they were going to join this enterprise called the United States. One of them actually, even at that time, decided they would put it to a vote of their citizens and said, do you guys want to join this or not? So going back from the very beginning of the country, the communities have thought about this. Within 30 years or so, pretty much every state in the country was holding referendums on constitutional amendments. So the entire principle that you can't change your fundamental law without a vote of the people came in very early. It was essentially a universal belief by the middle of the 19th century. By the late 19th century, things like the initiative and referendum came along. People sometimes think of direct democracy as that is what direct democracy is, but direct democracy is much, much more than the initiative and referendum. But it came in the late 19th, early 20th century. Right now we have about half the states have initiative rights. About 80% of the cities in the country do. But as a practical matter, every American is going to go to vote every few years on some sort of law, whether it's in their city, their county, their state, or something. So Americans are very used to voting on laws. It's something that they always do, again, other than at Washington, where there is none at all. So what does that mean for how Americans think about direct democracy in general? Well, I think it really does two things to the mentality of citizens of the U.S. First of all, they expect that they're going to vote on things. They expect that they have a say, and if they don't like the laws, they expect that they get to have a say in it. I run a think tank at USC called Initiative and Referendum Institute at USC. There's also a European branch. But I get email messages and calls all the time from citizens across the country saying, I don't like what my city council did, or I don't like what my local such and such board did. I want to change it. Tell me how to do it. So there's just an expectation that you, the citizens, can do something is number one. The other thing I think that it's done for the way that U.S. citizens think about direct democracy is it's made them think democracy for them is not about elites. Okay, so it's not about democracy to most U.S. citizens is not about we go to the polls every 4 years, we pick some elites, and then we go home and we show up again 4 years later. It is about a process where they think they're actively involved. The elites are there, but they have the right to override them and go and correct them if they're going off state. Thanks.
Obrigado. Yes, thank you very much. I mean, we really got a lot of different impressions, and always when I'm thinking and I'm listening to these kind of experiences, I'm trying to get something like a common picture of what we are talking about. And during this session now, I imagined democracy and direct democracy to be a big swimming pool. And in some places, the water is not very rich. There's not a lot of water to try to swim in this direct democracy pool. In others, the pool is very deep and big, but people are not so good in swimming. So in the end, it's of course about that we practice democracy and direct democracy. You cannot learn to swim without jumping into the water. And what we have here got is a lot of different kind of swimming lessons. And now the question for the second round is, from your experience as a swimmer in this swimming pools of direct democracy, which are the main lessons you feel are important for all of us to make democracy stronger? And John, you had to wait a long time, so you're first now.
Reverse the order here. Okay. So learning lessons, you can learn lessons in a lot of different ways. You can learn lessons from experience, you can learn it from history, and you can learn it from research. And so a lot of what I do is actual research. I'm an economist, political scientist by training, so I want to say a little bit about that. But I think the overwhelming thing we've learned, having done this now, well, in the U.S. for 250 years, Switzerland's done it for a long time, other countries have done it as well in all parts of the world. Well, we've learned, the overwhelming lesson we've learned is that it works. Very, very simply. It has certain promises. It doesn't work perfectly, but it generally works. And I'll just give a couple